MZTV.
What I would like to know is, who was the first guy who looked at an almond and said, "Hey man, we could get milk from that"? What an imagination. Or who's the first guy that looked at a tree, picked a piece of bark off, and said, "I see typewriter paper"? I don't get it. Very clever people, I might say. This is Martin Zender. Welcome to MZTV. I'm trusting God for another week of broadcasting that edifies you, gives you peace, gives you comfort. For those of you who have been asking me, Martin, is there a place where, although great information you gave us about Satan being a sinner from the beginning, is any of that written down? Because, boy, I would love to share it with my friends, but, I'm not sure they want to watch a six video series on the topic. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I do have it in writing. It is a ZWTF newsletter, all handily written down for you with illustrations, naturally. So find the link down here and send it to your friends. You know what? You'll be blinding them with science, really, because it's so technical, as you learned during the series. And God's truth always answers the bell to scrutiny. Love scrutiny. And boy, we really scrutinized it, didn't we? So send that article to your friends, and they'll have a hard time overcoming it. It's just, they'll have this hard time overcoming it as I had when my father-in-law gave me the Andrew Jukes book, The Restitution of All Things. There are just so many facts there, just one after another, and I eventually was just pummeled, broken down by facts, by scripture verses. And any honest person will react that way to the article about Satan being a sinner from the beginning. And Andrew Jukes' book, The Restitution of All Things. If you don't have it, if you're an avid reader, get it. It's a great book. It's written archaically because I think Andrew Jukes wrote it the latter half of the 19th century. But wow, what a scholarly piece. And again, the scripture verses were overwhelming, broke me down. I'm going to have to put out a curse warning here because I'm going to talk about a song that I absolutely hate, about a philosophy that I absolutely hate. I hate all philosophy, but this philosophy is particularly irritating. And I think that sometimes we ourselves will be tempted to throw up our hands and say, well, what difference do I make? What purpose do I serve on this planet? Everything that I go through, what does it amount to? Everything that I've done just seems to blow away and have no meaning. And really, what is the meaning of the universe? And then you get into a downward spiral. It's the opposite of Carry On My Wayward Son. And here's the strange thing about this show. The song that I absolutely hate was written and performed by a group called Kansas, called Dust in the Wind. I'm going to read the lyrics of that. I'm going to get into the philosophy of nihilism. I'm going to talk about a real freaking Nazi moron named Martin Heidegger, who is a philosopher. If you quote Heidegger, you're very astute. You're thought to be erudite and very sophisticated, one of the learned people of the world. But this guy is so full of BS, so full of his own shit that it's coming out of his ears. But the song Carry On My Wayward Son, one of my favorite songs, also from Kansas. The same group that wrote Dust in the Wind wrote Carry On My Wayward Son. Carry on. Sounds a little hopeful. Sounds like an exhortation. Yeah. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. How's that? Sounds like 1 Corinthians 15:28. God will be all in all when you are done. Don't cry. Don't you cry no more. May not be grammatically correct, but it's a good song. Talks about a stormy sea of moving emotion, tossed about. I'm like a ship on the ocean. I set a course for winds of fortune. Why would you set a course for winds of fortune if nothing has meaning, nothing matters, and if you don't even technically exist? Carry on, you will always remember. Carry on, nothing equals the splendor. Now your life's no longer empty, but surely heaven waits for you. Yes, Kansas, beautiful. Don't you cry no more. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. What the hell happened to you people when you wrote Dust in the Wind? What happened? What event happened between Carry On My Wayward Son and Dust in the Wind? All we are is dust in the wind. Do you know how depressing that is? I get so freaking angry whenever I hear that song on the radio. I have somebody turn it off. I refuse to listen to it. I hate it with a purple passion. And it's a contradictory thing because let me tell you why. I looked this up in Wikipedia. Dust in the Wind is a song recorded by the American progressive rock band Kansas and written by band member Kenny Livgren. Kenny, what the hell happened to you? Was this an LSD trip? Did you come out of this? The song peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 the week of April 22nd, 1978. That's depressing. I was getting ready to graduate from high school then. I remember when this song came out, making it Kansas' only single to reach the top 10 in the U.S. Oh, that's really unfortunate because Carry On My Wayward Son is such a better song. Now, they have a thing called here inspiration, like the inspiration of the song. The inspiration of the song. And then they have the audacity to say this. The title of this song is a Bible reference. What? You're not actually going to give the reference, are you, and have me look it up? Yeah. Wikipedia, they give the reference here. The title of the song is a Bible reference, paraphrasing Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 1:14. Are you ready for this? Ecclesiastes 1:14. Apparently, the song is in reference to this. Solomon, I reflected on everything that is accomplished by man on earth, and I concluded everything he has accomplished is futile, like chasing the wind. I'm going to look at this in the concordant version because, of course, Solomon was a very depressed guy when he wrote Ecclesiastes. Let me go to Ecclesiastes 1:14 in the concordant version. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and behold, the whole is vanity and a grazing on wind. What is distorted cannot be set in order, and what is lacking cannot be counted. Yet when I faced all my deeds that my hands had done, and the toil that I had toiled in doing them, behold, the whole was vanity and grazing on wind. There it is, dust in the wind, grazing on wind. But you know what Solomon is not saying here? That all we are is dust in the wind. He says that his activity seemed to him to be grazing on wind. He's talking about his activity, and it seems to him that it was empty. It wasn't producing anything. And perhaps he's looking at this through the prism of how can a man be righteous before God? It must be that. How can a man be righteous before God? How can a man justify any of his acts when they come from this wellspring of sin and death? And so Solomon must be looking within for something good, looking without for something good, and not finding anything. Not finding anything within himself to answer the bell of righteousness. Because Solomon's not saying what we are is dust in the wind. He's saying what he's doing is like grazing on wind. All his activities are like grazing on the wind. It's like, you're grazing. You're trying to get some substance from the wind. You bite down, you can't get anything. And there's nothing to nurture you there. And so, actually, it's pretty dang good advice. It's a dang good way to look at things, to try to find lasting sustenance from this world and its pleasures, its joys, even its necessities. It is like grazing on the wind. You're looking for food. You're looking for something to sustain you, but that only comes from the Spirit of God. That's where you get the sustenance. And that's the opposite of grazing on wind. Okay, now I can hate Kansas again. I close my eyes only for a moment, and the moment's gone. All my dreams pass before my eyes, a curiosity. Dust in the wind. All they are is dust in the wind. Here he's talking about his dreams. All his dreams are dust in the wind. That is Solomonic. But this, same old song, that's actually Solomonic. Just a drop of water in an endless sea. Nah, now we're getting nihilistic. Now we're getting philosophical. Just a drop of water in an endless sea. Solomon never said that. He never said that we are just drops of water in an endless sea. He was talking about his actions, talking about his works. All we do crumbles to the ground, though we refuse to see. Back to Solomon. Solomon kind of says that, doesn't he? Dust in the wind. Now all we are is dust in the wind. That's what I hate. To think that all existence is to be nothing, is to not count, to not matter. This is why people jump off the Golden Gate Bridge and overdose on fentanyl and heroin, is because they feel like all we are is dust in the wind. You do not want to play this song to a drug addict or a depressed person. All we are is dust in the wind. Nothing matters. Is the philosophy behind all we are is dust in the wind. If you want to say that everything I do, nothing I do can amount to anything, okay, but it's just because a man is born to trouble and God has given an experience of evil to humble you by it. But to say that you as a human being, you as a created child of God are nothing, and you are no more important to the Creator than a piece of dust in the wind that, according to the philosophy, the wind that blows as it will, without a pattern, without a reason, without a beginning, without an end, just floating about on nothingness in the ether, and you're no different. A human being is no different than dust in the wind. That sucks. I hate Kansas again. I hate them for this song. And then this. Now, don't hang on. Don't hang on. They're saying the opposite thing in Carry On My Wayward Son. They're saying, hang on, carry on, carry on. Don't hang on. Don't hang on. Nothing lasts forever but the earth and sky. That's bullshit. Bullshit. Nothing lasts forever but the earth and sky. No, in fact, this earth does not last forever. This earth is aeonian. So you got it a little mixed up there. Most things last forever except this earth and this sky. There will be a new earth and a new sky. We don't have any indication that it ends, but really, it slips away and all your money won't another minute buy. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind, Harold. Dust in the wind. Everything is dust in the wind. Everything is dust in the wind. Kansas song ends like that. I looked up the philosophy called nihilism. This is really sick. And this is quite suggestive of it. Listen to this beauty. Nihilism is the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. That's nihilism. And people who are nihilistic are thought to be artistic, deep. Oh, they're very important. People are important who are very overly cynical, overly negative, overly pessimistic. They reject anything of value. They renunciate their childhood, their upbringing. Everything is worthless. It's the doctrine, according to Wikipedia, of an extreme Russian revolutionary party circa 1900, which found nothing to approve of in the established social order. That's worse than that. It's nothing to approve of anywhere at any time. Here's a sub-question here. Why is nihilism toxic? Great question. Whatever motivates nihilism, that is the feeling that life and the universe have no meaning or purpose, can also motivate depression and suicide. Really? Really? Not only can it motivate depression and suicide, but it can take the depressive and the suicidal to the next level. As a result of the focus in my work on nihilism, I've had many people reach out to me and express their suffering from it. Apparently, this was written by a person. I don't have the name of the author here. I'm not going to investigate it, but I'm glad to see the topic, why is nihilism toxic? Martin Heidegger. I looked this guy up. He's a Nazi, literally a Nazi. And I'm going to end with this. And I'm going to give you the opposite of this. I'm going to read what this guy thinks. And then I'm going to give you the antidote on this show right now. I'm not going to make you wait. This is the man himself, Martin Heidegger, quoting. For example, when I sit down to dinner and pick up my fork, I am not picking up an object with good stabbing properties. You're not. I am non-reflectively engaging in order to eat. End of sentence. When it works as expected, equipment is transparent. When we use it, it is subsumed under the work toward which it is employed. Heidegger calls this structure of practically ordered reference relations the worldhood of the world. Heidegger calls the mode of being of such entities ready to hand, for they are understood only in being handled. If your fork is made of plastic, however, and it snaps in the course of using it, then it assumes the mode of being that Heidegger calls, quote, present at hand. For now, you need to make the fork the object of your focal awareness, considering it in terms of its properties. Is it too broken to use? If so, could you possibly get by with one of your other utensils or just with your fingers? This guy had too much time on his hands. This kind of equipmental breakdown is not the only way that objects become present at hand for us, but Heidegger considers it typical of the way that this shift occurs in the course of ordinary goings-on. In this way, Heidegger creates a theoretical space for the categories of subject and object, while at the same time denying that they apply to our most basic way of moving about in the world, of which they are instead presented as derivative. One more quote, and then I'll give you the solution. Heidegger unifies these three existential features of Dasein. Dasein was his name for existence. It's actually a German word that means existence. In a composite structure, he terms care, ahead of itself being already in the world as being amidst entities encountered within the world. What unifies this formula is temporality. Understanding is oriented towards future possibilities. Attunement is shaped by the past, and discourse discloses the present in those terms. In this way, the investigation into the being of Dasein leads to time. Much of Division 2 of Being and Time, that is one of his great books, is devoted to a more fundamental reinterpretation of the findings of Division 1 in terms of Dasein's temporality. This is why Paul, in Colossians chapter 2, warned against philosophy. It's humanity bungling in its own mind, grasping at straws. This truly is dust in the wind, and it's presented in a way that sounds smart, and this man is considered to be important, one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century, one of the most important philosophers. Who cares? How is this important? This is what is important, is that everything came into existence through God. All is out of God, Romans 11:36. All exists through God, and all returns to God. That's all Romans 11:36. God is the meaning of everything, and everything has meaning. And your natural thoughts are the right thoughts. A fork is a freaking fork. And you use it to eat your food. End of story. Anything beyond that is philosophy. And it's an endless wandering through the corridors of the mind, using the inventiveness of the human imagination and then presenting it with multisyllabic words and then positing that you yourself have created these wonderful thoughts. But no, I really relate this to the Pentecostal movement that dreams up its own realities. It's a philosophy in its own right. Any departure from the Scripture. There are two things you need to know. The Scripture, all is out of God, through God, and into God. And your life, your present experience. You don't need to wander beyond that. And anything you need to know, God presents it to you. And God does not present in the Scripture intricacies of the human mind, of existence. God just says, I brought man into existence. God breathed and Adam became a living soul. Then he created a woman, then the man had sex with a woman, and they had kids. And they used forks to eat things. That's it. It's what God does with the human race. What God does with the human race that is important. And that is the answer to all philosophy. What is God doing? How is he bringing the human race from a beginning to an end? That is what we need to know. And all the answers we need are in the Scripture. And yet people are so dissatisfied with God's answers that they have to make up their own. And they present it in songs, stupid songs like Dust in the Wind. Solomon experimented with it. He really flirted with philosophy. But in the end, he realized even his philosophy was crap. That's the lesson of Ecclesiastes. Even my philosophy is crap. My thinking is crap. Who cares what I think? And I say that to people when they say, well, I think. So I don't care what you think. I mean, if in some way I do, and I want to hear what you think, I'll say, what do you think? But in the end, do I care what you think? Does what you think weigh on the side of the truth? No, truth is truth. Truth is objective. It's not up to what you think. And truth is presented to us in the Scriptures, which can be understood rationally by understanding laws of language. God is concrete. God presents himself as concrete. God himself is not concrete, but God presents himself to creatures who depend on concrete thinking, concrete ideas, concrete facts. Forget ideas, concrete facts. We don't need ideas. We need concrete facts, and we have them as presented in the Scripture. The Scripture is the answer to all philosophy. My son, I raised my son Luke in the truth. He went to college for 1 year, and he became a philosopher. He majored in philosophy, and that was the end. He threw away everything I taught him over 18 years. He threw it away in 1 freaking year of philosophy. And he holds up these people as great thinkers, great heroes, people in the know. And his poor old dad is he loves me and I love him, and we have a great relationship, and he respects that I work with videos and write. But as far as what I believe, I'm just a hayseed, a hack, a hick. It's like, he wisely abandoned all that. In his mind, it was a wise thing to do, to abandon it for the high thinking of these philosophers, people like Martin Heidegger and others. Well, God has answered all of that, and it is out of him, through him, and for him is all.